be recorded. So if you ever want to come back and listen to the discussion today, then you can find it in your iEcho library section to access this video. But I just wanted to quickly have everyone here introduce themselves before we begin the knowledge based portion of this program. So, without further ado, let's begin. So, why don't we start with Miss Suarez? If you're comfortable, again, totally fine if you don't want to. Just introduce who you are, where you're zooming in from, and what you'd like to get out of today's session.
Hi everyone, my name is Maria Suarez. I'm zooming from Santa Fe, New Mexico, and I'm interested in this information because during the pandemic, I was with my kiddos at home, three kiddos, doing, these sessions virtual with the schools, and one of them is under some therapists sessions as well. So it's kind of interesting how the virtual tutoring just changed like after and before COVID. So thank you.
Well, thank you. That's amazing. Mr. Felly, if you don't mind, feel free to go next.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me? Hello? Can
Yeah,
you hear me?
we can hear you, yes.
For welcoming us. My name is Ngoimbe Shfeli. I'm a refugee here in Malawi, especially in the Zaleka refugee camp, but I'm a clinical officer by professional. And here I'm leading as the executive director at Zaleka Home Based Care. And I'm the owner of Eco Health Hub here in Malawi. Thank you very much.
That's great to hear. Bella, you're next. Feel free to introduce yourself and again, any other background knowledge, that would be great.
Hi, I'm Bella. I'm zooming in from New Jersey, and what I want to get out of the session today is how to be a better tutor and how to help kids as best as I can. I'm from New Jersey. I'm a freshman, and I'd love to keep doing this.
That's awesome to hear. I'm not sure if the person on Little Bee Books Club Little Bee Books is available right now, but I can quickly introduce you if you're not available. But the person on that end works with Little Bee Books. They're an organization that focuses on producing children's books. And actually, John B., why don't you introduce yourself as well whenever you're ready? This is our moderator, by the way. You're muted.
Sorry, everyone. I'm so happy to be here. Sorry to be late. Had some technical issues, but I'll be serving as moderator today. So we'll be checking the chat for any questions you guys have. So feel free to add them in as Ajay goes along.
Okay, Mr. Buckholes. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correct, but feel free to introduce yourself whenever you're ready.
That was very good. It's Dave Buchholz, and I'm actually from Albuquerque, New Mexico, and I work with Project Echo, and I work with AJ with the contracting process. So I was just here to support him on one of his first programs and Echoes.
Okay, happy to hear that you're on. Rajasvi, you're next.
Hi, I'm Rajasvi. I'm a freshman in New Jersey too. And I'm interested in this because I want to be able to help kids and tutor them.
Okay, and the last person, Tandeep, I'm not sure who's on the other side of that.
Hi. So the name is wrong. My name's Tomas. Um, so I'm zooming in from New Jersey, and this looks very interesting. I'm interested in this to I don't know, expand my knowledge a bit on math and this program. Sounds very interesting.
Happy to hear that you're on, Tomas. I just changed your name. Well, thank
Thank
you
you.
all
Yeah.
for introducing yourselves. That's a good first start. And just to give you some background on how today will look, I will spend about 20 minutes giving you all some knowledge on virtual tutoring and how exactly I'm related to that. And after that, for the rest of the time, we will discuss a case study that I'm about to talk to you all about. And after that, if you have any other questions, feel free to ask, and I will send out a survey at the very end. But yeah, that's how today will look. Again, we might go a little over time. If you can't continue, just feel free to let me know and you can leave. That's totally fine because we started a little late. But without further ado, let's jump in. And for those who weren't here, just a disclaimer, this session will be recorded. So let's start with the case study. So I've created this case study based off of my own personal experiences, but I wanted to see how you all would respond to this case study. And this isn't specific to me. There are hundreds of students out there who have a similar goal as me who run into the same issue. But I would like to encourage you all to keep this case study in mind as I introduce the idea of virtual tutoring to you over the next 20 to 25 minutes. So imagine this. You work at multiple community centers after school. At around 3 o'clock, you drive to a community center after school to tutor students from the grades of kindergarten to 12th grade. And you're helping these students with homework, but there's limited space and staffing, and there's also a language barrier because there are about 25 to 50 students at a time in a gym with only yourself and another teacher running around to help a ton of different individuals with different needs and different questions that need to be answered. There's no instructional continuity here. You can't personalize your teaching style to the individual that you're talking to. And there's a lack of mentorship. So we're trying to address this issue in the specific example of why virtual tutoring could be advantageous. Um, and we'll talk about those reasons starting now. And some key takeaways of this echo session that you'll get over the next 4 weeks are what follows. Virtual tutoring can be highly effective if done right, and some studies show academic outcomes comparable to in-person tutoring. This is important because it shows how virtual tutoring is actually as effective as tutoring in person, which is a stigma that we have to break. And while virtual tutoring may not always replicate the impact of in-person tutoring, it provides a flexible and scalable alternative to traditional education styles. I just wanted to start with some data. So, a recent study published by Harvard and Stanford University talked about pivoting from pandemic recovery to long-term reform. And the authors hypothesized that as of the spring of 2024, the average US student remained nearly half a grade level behind in both math and reading. The highest income districts were 4 times more likely to have recovered in both math and reading than the lowest income districts. And racial and ethnic disparities have grown since the start of the pandemic, as well as a rise in absenteeism is slowing the recovery in high poverty districts. But federal relief dollars have aided the recovery in these higher poverty districts. A paper published in the National Bureau of Economic Research also provides 4 main mechanisms of impact of tutoring in general. These mechanisms include more instruction time, customization, increased engagement, and mentorship. To quickly start with more instruction time, this is pretty self-explanatory. The more time that you have to instruct an individual, the higher academic achievement that you'll see. Again, it's pretty self-explanatory. But to move on to the next one, customization of learning. This deals with teaching at the right level. I just wanted to ask everyone on the Zoom, feel free to answer if you potentially have an answer to this question. How would you personally handle a classroom of students with a wide range, with a wide range of skill levels? Feel free to just jump in if you have any responses. No, not at the moment. That's perfectly fine. Well, the goal of this echo is that you potentially have an answer to this question at the end, but that's okay. Just keep this question in mind. And students who miss out on foundational pillars of knowledge and skills tend to fall further behind. For example, if you have a first grade student who is learning the basics of multiplication, right? And the student doesn't necessarily understand how to multiply and continues on with their academic career. It's obviously going to be much harder for the student to catch up because they lack the fundamental core knowledge of math to achieve higher levels of success. And classroom time is less productive as skill level variation increases. So when you get different styles of learning, the productivity of each student decreases if they're not instructed correctly. Increased engagement. Tutoring is fundamentally different from classroom education. There are less distractions when tutoring an individual than when teaching a classroom full of students because it's easy to get lost with your friends. I'm sure we've all been there at some point, so you can all attest to this. But a one-on-one small group setting allows for more engagement and rapid feedback. Tutoring promotes a greater degree of focus and effort than in larger classrooms. There's also a mentorship aspect because tutor-student relationships could go beyond the academic content of each tutoring session, and human connection can lead to positive association with educational content. Now, you might be wondering, why virtual tutoring? Why is virtual tutoring potentially better than in-person tutoring? And some potential topics of reasons why are included: increased accessibility, personalized learning, a comfortable environment, cost effectiveness, and flexibility and convenience. To start with increased accessibility. So, virtual tutoring removes geographical barriers, allowing students in rural or underserved communities to connect with a wider range and pool of expert tutors. For example, if you're a student struggling with math in the Midwest and you're looking for a qualified tutor to teach you in a specific subject, you found such tutor, they live in New York. You can easily contact this tutor and Zoom with them instead of, well, driving to New York or flying to New York, which is why virtual tutoring can bridge these gaps. This is scalable and particularly critical in underserved areas where access to high quality education is often limited. Virtual tutoring is also more cost effective. It lowers operating costs and eliminates the tutor or tutee's traveling expenses. It also decreases the overhead costs of physical learning centers. Virtual tutoring is also flexible and convenient. Sessions can be scheduled at any time of day as long as it works for both the tutor and tutee. And again, it's very convenient because it eliminates travel time and costs that come along with this. Students can also learn from the comfort of their own homes, which reduces anxiety and distractions for some individuals who might get distracted in a classroom environment. Virtual tutoring also allows for personalized learning. So, because virtual tutoring usually is tailored to a closer proportion of student to tutor, the tutor can tailor their lessons and also teaching style to the unique needs of their tutee, which can boost student confidence and address other learning gaps. But does virtual tutoring work? I've just briefly, I just briefly gave you all some information on why virtual tutoring could work, but does it actually work? So, an article from the Journal of Public Economics involving a ton of different entities and organizations, including the London School of Economics, held a controlled trial on the effectiveness of an online math tutoring program targeted at secondary school students from highly disadvantaged neighborhoods. They held an intensive 8-week program delivered by a single qualified math teacher at a 1-to-2 ratio of one tutor, this one qualified math teacher, to two students. And by the end of this program, they saw significant increases in standardized test scores and the end of the year math grades in these students. This is amazing because it reduces the probability of repeating a school year and it raises the aspirations and confidence of the student at school. Some of the best practices mentioned by tutors are the following. I love this graph. It correlates to my own virtual tutoring program. The blue includes some of the main obstacles. The red includes some of the best tools that you can use on each virtual session. And the green includes some of the best practices mentioned by tutors. So I'll let you all take a look at that. But from my own personal experiences, other activities and extracurriculars do interfere with tutoring sessions due to the fact that since tutoring is virtual, individuals might not feel as engaged or they might not feel as motivated to join the sessions. So that can be an issue, obviously. The digital whiteboard is super powerful when tutoring virtually. It's usually at the bottom of your screen on Zoom. There's a button that allows you to pull up a whiteboard. You can write numbers down or explain concepts through this whiteboard instead of, well, writing on a pad of paper and showing it obviously to your tutee. That can be very ineffective. And um, an emphasis on motivation and the emotional aspect of virtual tutoring is also very important due to the fact that if you don't connect with your tutor, it's hard to make progress in this tutee's learning process due to the fact that if I'm tutoring an individual and we hop on, it's a very transactional relationship. It's not too motivating for this individual to learn about, math or reading or any other foundational concept that they might be looking to gain out of getting onto a session with such tutor. But all of those, all of these are very important and very important to keep in mind as well. So the Johns Hopkins School of Education also published a paper, and they also held a trial. They held a randomized controlled experiment evaluating the air reading model, which is actually a virtual tutoring model designed to improve the basic foundational skills of reading among elementary students performing below grade level. The study was conducted in a rural district in Texas, involving almost 400 students from first to sixth grade, and students were randomly assigned to either the air reading virtual model or a controlled group in which these students received standard classroom education and instruction. So groups of up to 4 students were paired with the same high qualified tutor in 40-minute sessions 4 times a week. Again, we've talked about that close ratio of 2T to tutors. That's very important regarding virtual tutoring. But the study found that students who received the error reading tutoring model demonstrated significant gains in reading achievement compared to their peers, translating to approximately 1.5 additional months of learning. Students who received 40 or more tutoring sessions exhibited a much larger effect size, reflecting 2 months of additional learning. There was no significant difference by race, ethnicity, or socioeconomic status, though first grade students showed the largest gains. Again, going back to the concept of teaching students the fundamental pillars of knowledge so that they can succeed later on in their academic careers. So these findings suggest that virtual tutoring, when implemented consistently, that's very important, can provide meaningful improvements in reading outcomes, especially when students receive sustained tutoring. The outcomes emphasize the necessity of, again, sustained engagement in virtual tutoring to maximize its benefits. If a student gets onto a session and isn't engaged, doesn't really want to be there, the student obviously won't get a ton out of the session, which is why sustained engagement is extremely important. Some of the potential challenges and downsides of virtual tutoring. So I know, some of them are on the screen, but do any of you have any other input on potential downsides? Feel free to speak up. Not as of now. That's okay. We'll go over them. But as you can see on the screen, technology access, technical difficulties, student engagement, distractions at home, and less of a personal interaction can all be downsides of virtual tutoring. So, to start with technological access, not all students, unfortunately, have access to reliable internet and hardware. They might not have access to computers and other hardware that is vital to virtual tutoring. And this can create or worsen disparities in educational outcomes. This is obviously a huge issue that we see nowadays that we need to address. Hold on, just okay. Next slide. Technical difficulties. Poor internet connection or software glitches can disrupt sessions, leading to a less effective learning environment. For example, if right now I were to end the meeting, we would all have to get back on. It obviously wastes time, and it's hard to get back on track. I might lose where I am in the slide deck. You all might lose any potential questions that you have due to the fact that, well, you had to rejoin. And the whole thing, it can be a big issue. Little setbacks like that can really disrupt the learning environment of a virtual session. Student engagement. Again, going back to engagement, some students, especially younger students, are less motivated learners who, might be forced to get on there if, their parents want them to get on there, if they just don't feel like learning that one day. They may struggle to stay engaged, especially in a virtual format where you're not forced to speak to a tutor face to face. It's easy to get distracted since you're, virtual, and that can really disrupt and decrease the effectiveness of each session. Without accountability, again, accountability is big here. Voluntary programs may only benefit the students who are already motivated to learn from the virtual format. Distractions at home. I know we talked about how learning from your home can be super comforting. You can learn from your room, on your desk, in your comfy clothes, but that can also potentially be a distraction. You might potentially be learning in an area with other family members around. Uh, you might be crammed into your living room, right? Your mom might call you down for dinner at a very inconvenient time. Um, this can all distract you, and they don't really seem like distractions, but little things like that can really decrease the effectiveness of each tutoring session. And even if, your dog barks in the background, you might look over there, and that could really potentially harm the effectiveness and uh, also just the learning on the virtual format that day. And this can be an issue. There's also less of a personal interaction um, on Zoom or any other virtual format. While interactive technology helps, like the whiteboard that I mentioned, meeting people on Zoom, like I met all of you and all of you on the call met each other, that can be challenging. You're not making direct eye contact. You're not shaking someone's hand. Um, you know, Different things like that can really make the virtual learning format less personal for some individuals. And while this can be beneficial for those who are introverted and potentially don't necessarily gain from a personal interaction, for those who are extroverted and really rely on that personal interaction can really struggle from the virtual format. And this can obviously make it harder to build a strong rapport. Some stressors during remote learning. Um, an article published in the Current Opinions in Psychology focused on these stressors. Without looking, do any of you have any other stressors that can potentially harm not just, the teachers or the tutor, but also the tutee?
I feel like one that the student, if they didn't really know the teacher, could be stressed about getting something wrong and embarrassing themselves.
Yeah, that's a great point. The teacher could get a question wrong. That could be an issue. And if a student gets a question wrong, that could also embarrass them, which could really make the student self-conscious, which can decrease the effectiveness. Great point, Bella. Anything else from anyone else?
I think teachers that was handling like hybrid learning, that's another type of stressors during the learning, because she needs to provide a lesson for some kids in the class, while in the other side of the screen in her computer, there's another ones that she's not even controlling what they are doing, what they are watching, or even if they are paying attention or not. So that is kind of like a, not providing 100% of a learning session because of that, let's say, situation, or yeah.
That's a fantastic point, Mrs. Suarez. For all of you guys know right now, I could be watching YouTube on my phone, right on my screen, but I'm not. You can take my word for it. But again, the teacher could be stressed, in which they don't know what their students are doing on a virtual platform because the student can easily switch tabs and potentially watch something that's not related to academics. Or, mute their mic and talk to a friend in the background. That could be a big issue, for the teachers. Anything else? Anyone feel free to speak up.
I feel like also sometimes like during COVID, I know I used to play like video games on my screen like during remote learning. So maybe like if, as you said earlier, if a kid isn't like engaged fully, he'll like have these distractions available.
That's a great point, Tomas. Again, the teachers don't necessarily know what you're doing, and you might, in the moment, enjoy playing video games on Zoom, but you kind of feel guilty looking back. Yeah, totally understandable and a great stressor there. Anything else feel free to, again, just unmute and give your opinion. If not, feel free to put in the chat. And Mr. Felly, I did see your question. I will answer that at the end.
In I attend a conference about education in Albuquerque, so I was able to enroll my in that time was like 3 years old, and he's now 6, and he's with ADHD. But in that time, I enrolled him in a program which is they provide a computer and a hotspot to be able to connect to these tutorings remotely. So after the program, I had to return the hotspot, which just was a good way to access to this remote learning. But not all the organizations might have that possibility to offer a hotspot, and especially for those places that have it's very hard to access to internet. So that's another thing that we are not seeing very often.
That's a great point again, Mrs. Suarez. And yeah, I mean, that's very common, unfortunately. We see that a lot nowadays. But again, great points, guys. Let's continue on with the information. So,
Hey, Ajay, just to stop you for a second, there are a couple more questions
yes.
from Mr. Felly. So if you want to address a few of them right now, especially the one around virtual tutoring with limitations.
Sure. So, Mr. Felly, I'm reading your question. And so, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'll focus on the question right now regarding access to virtual tutoring, to the proper equipment for virtual tutoring. So, in my experience, I have run into that issue. I work at some learning centers that don't have access to computers, cameras. Cameras are very important, by the way. If you're on a PC and don't have a camera, so that the tutor can see you, that really takes away from the personal aspect of virtual tutoring. That's a very vital piece of equipment for virtual tutoring. It can be very hard to figure out a way to get your students to be tutored virtually if they're struggling. And one big way that I addressed this challenge was funding. So at the beginning of this knowledge that I've shared, I mentioned that I'm the founder of a 501c3 nonprofit called Youth Get Next. And we actually receive funding. We fundraise for specific moments like this, in which we need the proper money to potentially, buy equipment for virtual tutoring. And we did that to purchase cameras for the specific learning center so that the students can be tutored. This is something that I would highly recommend. If you can ask family members, any contacts that you have. It doesn't have to be business relationships. You can ask friends, again, family members. Obviously, any connections that you have to lend $5 to $10 here. That can really go a long way in raising money to potentially buy the proper the proper hardware and technology that you need for virtual tutoring. Again, going back to this slide, we addressed it. Not having, internet connection or hardware can be a huge issue, and that's just one way that you can address this problem. If there's any more context for your situation, I can help you brainstorm after I get through this presentation. But I hope that answers your question for now. I saw that you have others in the chat. I promise I will get to those at the end. We only have a couple more slides left, so I will get through them. Excuse me. I muted by accident. We can talk about the case study and any other questions that any of you have. We can get to those. Okay, so quickly moving on. I held this slide up for a while now for teachers not having the proper training to learn how to engage virtually, not knowing the tools to engage virtually could be an issue. Little support and engagement from parents. If parents just expect their students and children to hop on, that can really decrease effectiveness and engagement. Technological issues during class, again, a software glitch. And how much new material to introduce when you don't really know the student that you're tutoring. Since you're virtual, it's hard again for a student to hold up their homework. It's hard to see it. Very logistical aspects like that can really be challenging for these individuals to kind of get across what exactly they want to learn and for the teachers to pick up that specific message. For students, a lack of communication with the teachers. Again, it's hard to communicate on a virtual platform. A loss of mentorship and personal relationship. Decreased motivation. Again, you're not as accountable to hop on each session if it's virtual. And technological issues during class. Same thing, software glitches and different things like that. But to get into 5 factors for effective virtual tutoring, such factors include structure and consistency, qualified and trained tutors, which is the most important thing, mentorship, interactive technology, and motivation as well as engagement. To start with the structure and consistency of virtual tutoring, if any of you guys are going to remember anything from the session, remember this: high impact tutoring. When virtual tutoring, in person or online, intensive sessions and consistent sessions is very, very important, because if sessions are held on like an on-demand model, it's hard to consistently learn for the tutor, and it's hard for the tutee to also learn from, again, the tutor. An on-demand model does not work. You need some sort of structure and schedule. Qualified and trained tuners. Again, I mentioned that this is by far the most important thing, regardless of the format, whether you're virtual or in person. Having access to well-trained tutors is extremely important so that your students can learn about whatever aspect there is at the time properly, and you're not receiving incorrect information. Relationship-based instruction. Again, a strong rapport between tutors and students is a critical component for success. This is shown to improve student engagement and boost outcomes if the student can connect and be mentored by the tutor. Interactive technology. Modern virtual platforms replicate the in-person experience through tools like, again, the whiteboard, screen sharing, and other collaborative tools. Tutors can use these tools to explain advanced concepts and visually adapt their teaching styles to their student. And the ability to record sessions, sorry about that. The ability to record sessions is vital for students to revisit lessons for reinforcement. Motivation and engagement. Virtual tutoring works best for students who are motivated and participate consistently. So attendance is a key driver of results, and programs that involve parents in encouraging attendance have seen a significant increase in student participation, because these students are obviously more accountable to get onto these sessions and listen and learn. That's all I have for you guys today. If you have any questions, feel free to speak up, put them in the chat, and Mr. Fally, I will address your questions now. And again, if any of you on the Zoom call have any other questions, put them in the chat and I will get to them. But to address your first question, Mr. Fally, let me just look at it. Okay, so the Okay, so correct me if I'm wrong, but what I'm kind of getting from this question is that um, in your center, you don't have access to as many high qualified, experts in the specific core subjects, and also you're asking for what potential strategies that you can use to adapt to the virtual tutoring model in a low resource setting. So again, there's no correct answer to this. This is a very hard question to answer. And obviously it's very prevalent in today's society. What I would recommend is let's see. Okay, so I would definitely recommend that any aid that you can give your students and children uh, really helps, really benefits. No matter how small it is, I would recommend to uh, obviously look for well-trained and qualified tutors, but any help is usually good. If you can, even if you, Mr. Felly, are potentially well educated in a specific concept of math or know a lot about, English grammar, you could potentially educate your students that way. It's all about finding individuals who might not be obviously the most qualified in every subject and every overarching concept, but maybe people who can provide the structural knowledge for at least simple topics and topics that your colleagues are well trained in. So if that answers your question, there you go. If not, just feel free to uh, ask a following ask a follow-up question and I'll try to answer it better if I didn't understand what you were asking the first time. Ms. Corona also asked a question. How can you help motivate a student who doesn't want to be tutored? What techniques or practical ideas have you found that works best? So this is a really good question, and we see this a lot. Again, I've created my own virtual tutoring program, which is why I've experience in this particular topic, um, and I can give you the structure of each session. So usually, we'll have tutors tutor students at a learning center from around 4:15 to 5:15. It's an hour-long session, usually once or twice a week. And what we do is for the first 5 minutes, we like to just simply talk to our tutees about their day. Very simply put, talk to your tutee like a human. Make small talk like a human. Um, Make small talk. Just really try to connect. If the week before your student mentioned that they're going to a soccer game or playing in one, ask them about that, right? Different things like that. Different ways to connect with your student is very important. So we'll spend 5 minutes doing that so that the student has a positive outlook at the session ahead. For about 45 minutes, we will tutor the student. About 20 minutes after, the first 5 minute introduction, we'll tutor the student. 45 minutes total. After the 20 minutes, we'll take a 5 minute break. The student can grab a snack, more conversation, just a mental break from tutoring in general, and then another 25-minute session of academic learning. And for the last 5 minutes, again, talking with your student about their day, um, what they're having for dinner, different things like that. Really create an important personal relationship with the individual that you're tutoring, whether that be one student, a 1-to-1 ratio, a 2-to-1 ratio, a 3-to-1, or 4-to-1 ratio that we saw in our air reading model. But hopefully that answers your question. That's one good way that we help engage students. And this has actually been proven because Mr. Ade Camille Kelly, who is speaking next, will talk about this further. But we do see that in between sessions, the students are actually more motivated to learn than they were before, just because they have a positive association with learning in general. Any other questions? Feel free to ask. Okay, well, if no one has any questions at the moment, we can go back to the case study. So I wanted to hear from you all what you think a potential solution to this case study could be. Okay, well, I'll give you all a couple more minutes to think about it. But in the meantime, I do have some questions that some folk who weren't able to make it today did provide me with. And this could help clarify some information that you might be missing. But without further ado, I can start answering these. The first question is, what is the challenge that you personally have faced in setting up a virtual tutoring program? So this kind of ties into your question, Mr. Felly, figuring out where to start. It's hard to figure out where to start since virtual tutoring can seem like such a daunting task and program to begin. So figuring out where to start in the first place, figuring out what resources that you have, what resources that you might need equipment-wise, different things like that, where the students will be tutored, again, limiting distractions, different things like that. Figuring out where to start is extremely important. And as long as you can figure that out, everything else should be a breeze. But besides that, again, finding the appropriate technology. So figuring out what equipment that we need to make each program successful, each session successful. And again, tying back to your question, Mr. Fally, raising money for equipment, such as the cameras needed for the PC at one of the learning centers. To be honest with you, I did not want to hold a program at the center if we couldn't raise money for cameras, due to the fact that it wouldn't have been effective at all. It would have been a waste of resources because the students wouldn't have gained anything out of it if there wasn't a personal aspect of virtual tutoring. But those are just some answers to question one. Question two, how do you maintain engagement with tutors? So this is a good question. I know, Ms. Corona, you spoke about, you had a question about how to engage your tutees, but what if your tutors burn out, right? That's very common. It's hard to get on to consecutive sessions each week. I understand it. It can be very challenging. But some tips that I have as the program coordinator of a virtual tutoring program included, are the following. First, we orient our tutors, so we onboard them. We have a presentation that we give to our tutors so that they know what they're walking into. We also provide feedback and tell our tutors what they can improve on and different things like that. And one very powerful thing that I really like, we have a Google Sheet for our tutors in which we have our tutors write the name of their tutee and some of their interests, so that if a specific tutor who might, consecutively tutor tutee A, right? Tutor A tutors tutee A on a weekly basis. Let's say tutor A isn't able to make a session. Because tutor A wrote down information about tutee A, tutor B can look at that information, learn about their tutee beforehand, and make sure that the tutor looks forward to something going into the session so that they don't burn out, and they can also connect with their tutee right away. So the Google Sheet method is very impactful in my opinion. And we also have a data comparison method that we use. We have tutees take tests before and after the program, and because the tutors see that the tutees are improving, it really motivates them to continue tutoring, and it also motivates the tutees, obviously, to see that they're improving. But moving on, question 3, do you think that there's a difference between interpersonal connections than creating personal connections in a virtual versus a virtual setting? So I don't think so. Based off of what I've seen, you can connect to your tutee in the same way as long as you know how to, connect with your tutee, make the proper small talk, be open to, learning about your student. This can really make sure that the personal relationship between yourself and a tutee is obviously impactful. And the last question, yes, John V?
I know we only have a minute left and people are starting to log off. So do you want to quickly answer the last question and put your contact info back up?
Sure, yeah.
Okay.
That's a very good point. Actually, before you guys leave the session, I do have a survey that I'm going to put in the chat. So if you could fill that out, it would be very beneficial to me so that the programs in the future can continue to be effective in educating you all, and also, discussion wise. But to quickly answer the last question, how can you use virtual tutoring to amplify the benefits of teaching? Again, a closer relationship is super impactful. A 2-to-1 ratio or a 1-to-1 ratio is important in creating an impactful and effective tutoring format. So those were all the prepared questions that I had, by folks who weren't able to make it. Again, I posted the survey in the chat. I can stay on for, a couple more minutes after this. If any of you have any other questions that I didn't get to, feel free to stay on, and yeah, I can answer anything that you'd like.
Ajay, when is the next session and what is the topic going to be?
Yeah, so I got to this at the beginning. Let me quickly share my screen again. So it's on the flyer. The next session will be on the 20th, run by Mr. Ade Camille Kelly, and he will focus on the Learning Center and 2D perspective of virtual tutoring. So again, if any of you have any questions, feel free to ask. And if you have to log off, I completely understand.